so today we're going to tell you a little bit more about the Fynbos Biome. Now today we are at the Fynbos Nature Reserve, and if you would have a look around, much of the vegetation you find here falls under your Fynbos Biome. Now what is the Fynbos Biome? Well, let's begin with a few characteristics. So first things first, this was a bit confusing to get, but listen very carefully. So in your Fynbos Biome you have two vegetation types. Firstly, it is your Fynbos vegetation, and then your second one is your Renosterveld vegetation. We'll tell you a bit more about both of these vegetations as we go throughout the video. Now, most of the vegetation you'll find in your Fynbos Biome is mostly your shrub-like plants with very thin and hard leaves. Many of the vegetation that you'll find in your Fynbos Biome is small shrub-like plants with lots of very fine leaves and hard leaves. And then many of the vegetation is also endemic to South Africa, or to the Cape actually, which basically means that it grows only here in South Africa. This biome is immensely diverse with immense beauty, and it is well worth exploring. There are over 9,000 species of vegetation within your Fynbos Biome, and 2/3 of that is endemic to South Africa, meaning it will grow nowhere else in the world. Your Fynbos Biome mostly grows along the Cape, at the foot of your mountains and along the coastal areas.
Talk about the climate a little bit. So as you can see behind me, this is a perfect example of what Fynbos really does look like. As you can see, it's not the brightest green. I probably shouldn't be stepping there, but anyways, it's not the brightest green plants. It's got a sort of a half beigeish, half dull green kind of look to it. And if you look on the ground here, we've got a lot of rubble and sand, and it's not completely moist at all times. So it gets very little rainfall, this kind of place, which is why these leaves are so thin and prickly, because the thinner the leaf, the less surface area for evaporation to happen. So the plants maintain their water for a whole lot longer. So this kind of area has very little rainfall, and it's generally a lot of heat and a lot of hot sun. That's why these plants are adapted for exactly that. You also find that what happens a lot in these areas, you'll see there are fires. So in the Cape there are lots of mountain fires and forest fires, and people don't know how to not burn things down. Despite what people may think, that's actually part of the natural life of these plants. These plants very often needs occasional or seasonal fires to help regenerate, I think was what they'd said, to help regenerate and rejuvenate themselves. So these plants do need the fires. What people do, on the other hand, now this goes to the impact we have on their climate, we sometimes cause too much of a fire, and we burn too much of the wildlife down, and what that does is it gets rid of the fauna, or it gets rid of the flora, and also gets rid of the fauna.
In the Fynbos vegetation there are 4 types of plants. So first the Proteas, the second is the Ericas, the third is the Geophytes, and the fourth is the Restoids. Here we have an example of the Protea family. This is more specific, the Leucosphaerum cordifolium, and it is orange. It's an orange flower with hard leaves, hard leathery leaves. This is example, the Erica, this color. So you can see it's red and green, the flowers, and the leaves again are very tiny and hard, and the plant is of like a sticky texture.
So as you can see here, I am in what you would call a park, traditionally sitting in a swing set, and this is a very, very clear example of human impact. We are still, however, in the same park as we were in this previous video. However, we have now changed locations to the human impact part. Humans have negatively affected plant life and biomes for countless generations, and these are just a couple of ways that it has affected the plant life, specifically in the Fynbos Biome. I first want to start off by saying that, did you know that the Fynbos Biome is not only consists of Fynbos but also of Renosterveld? This, however, most people do not know this fact because the Renosterveld only consists of about 5%. Renosterveld requires a higher nutrient-rich soil in comparison to the Fynbos. As a result, because of commercialized farming, it has leached the nutrients from the soil and has meant that the Renosterveld has died because of lack of nutrients in the the soil. This means that there's only 5% today, and it is protected plants. This has also led to the mammals and the animals that survive and depend on the Fynbos biome to move to the protected areas, and we have lost lots of animal diversity in areas where they used to be in the past. The other thing that humans have done and affected is rubbish and chemical outlets. People unfortunately do not always look after this environment, and by throwing out rubbish and releasing toxic chemicals into the biome, this has resulted in plants dying and the loss of habitat and habitat destruction. There is also one of the things is fires. Fires are excellent, as you have mentioned previously. However, fires out of season and too many fires causes damage and a loss of biodiversity. We also have in Cape Town and in Western Cape, there is a lot of people moving down recently. As a result, there has been a greater need for homes. Specifically up the west coast, there has been a lot of loss of the Fynbos biome as a result of housing and finding housing. Thank you so much. This is all from today. Have an amazing day.